Welcome, everyone. We're taking a minute to get everybody online. We have a great guest speaker today to talk over the story arc of transition that has been recently made in a career reinvention engagement. Welcome, Blake. Welcome, Sean. You're more than welcome to come off camera. There you are. Sean, I think you probably just got my text too, right? Yeah. On the call also, a lot of you will recognize Shannon D, who runs our operations here at Soul Salt, answers lots of questions, and if you've had any interaction with our client-facing operations, you have had the great honor of working with Shannon. You'll also notice Hillary Brandeis and Shannon Judge. They are certified Soul Salt reinvention coaches. They've been with us for a while and have gone through the reinvention process that we're going to talk about today. And a good percentage of the clients that we work with here at Soul Salt are people who are seeking career transitions or recalibrations. And it's more work than I can handle at one time. And so Hillary and Shannon Judge are very well qualified to do that. And so we may have a moment or two where they chime in today too, so that you can get to know them, because the whole team is here to support our reinventors. Our guest speaker today is Lo Peterson, and in a moment we'll have her come on. Thanks for joining us, Lo. One thing that I should tell you is that we record this and share this. We typically have between 300 and 350 people who sign up for this webinar, knowing that most of them are people who will not be able to listen live. And so we record that so we can hand out this free resource. Those of us who are on the call, Shannon, Hillary, myself, and our guest speaker today, Lo, we have all been through reinvention ourselves. We understand how exciting it can be. We understand how full of possibility it is. And we also understand how frightening it can be at times to be in that position. So if you felt any of those things, we get it. We so get it. So if you have questions, please feel free to activate those in the chat. I'll ask Hillary and Shannon Judge to look at those and then alert me if there's something that comes up that's relevant to what we're talking about. Lo, if you want to come off mute. Lo is currently going through reinvention, and I could introduce her, but I think her story introduces her more. Just let me give a brief highlight of who she is. I can talk to her character. She's been extremely brave during this transition time. She came into reinvention coaching on a sabbatical leave. And it was a sabbatical leave that she was able to negotiate with her previous employer. And so she came in thinking that maybe we get started on the reinvention, and lo and behold, something else happened. She's been extremely creative and willing, one of the most willing and open reinvention clients I've ever had the honor of working with. And I believe that's one of the reasons why, Lo, you've had so much success already. Welcome, Annie. Good to see you. And so, Lo, and in terms of introduction, is there anything that I said about you coming into coaching, being on a sabbatical leave, that you want to add as part of that story?
Yeah. So in March of 2022, I took a sabbatical from work and had every intention of going back to my job with kind of a renewed sense of wanting to be there, a renewed sense of knowing that that was where I needed to be. And within 2 months of one being in my sabbatical, but also working with Lynn, it became very, very clear that I wanted nothing to do with that line of work anymore. And it was absolutely terrifying. I had worked for 10 years to get to the place that I had gotten. I had achieved financial goals. I had achieved, status goals within the companies I had been working at, and I had created a great network of people who saw me for those talents within that corporate environment. And I was proud of all of it, but none of it was fulfilling. None of it made me feel like I had connected to a part of myself that I didn't even know was there anymore. I kind of figured part of it had died with my childhood, to be honest. And really what ended up happening is I knew I didn't want that company, mainly because they don't align with my core values. We all know that that plumb line is extremely important. And that was the thing that kept pulling me back from going back there. But even more than that, I found a creative side that I never knew I had and that I had run from, but I didn't know that's what I was running from. So within the first 2-3 months of working with Lynn, it became very clear that I was playing to my pseudo strengths in my other job. I was playing to strengths that everybody else saw as she's high functioning, she's high performing, she'll get it done, all of those kinds of things. But then off to the side, inside, I was slowly being torn apart because none of it felt like me. None of it felt like I was actually arriving where I wanted to, even though I had worked and achieved all of the things that I had wanted to achieve. And so I think that's kind of where I would like to just start off with my journey is I really honestly thought that I was going to go back into my analytic type of job, worked really hard on organizing projects, organizing processes, creating, an environment for people to thrive in. But really what it came down to is that in doing that, I was killing a side of myself that hadn't been fed in a really long time and was screaming for something more. So I hope that kind of answered what you wanted, Lynn.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. So you came from a project management background. You were functioning well at it, but you used a term that I think is really helpful. And hi, Elizabeth, it's always good to have you. We got to do that hike again sometime. Get Penny with us, right? What I noticed with Low that we see a lot in our clients, both Hillary and Shannon Judge and I see this, is it's really a waste of your potential to work from pseudo strength. And when we talk about a pseudo strength, it's that kind of thing where people hand you work and you can do it and you can probably do it better than most people, but it takes a pound of flesh out of you to do it. There isn't the joy. There's satisfaction in knowing you can fulfill that role, you get kudos for it, but it doesn't come from your soul. It's something clearly that you do well, above average, but over time, it will burn you out. It will wear you down. And something that is a strength that you've done in the past that wasn't like that you enjoyed doing it, that brought you joy, that time just flew by, can turn into a pseudo strength over time because some roles are only ours for a season and a reason and not forever. Is that fair, Lo?
Yeah, I think that especially touching on the fact that your pseudo strengths didn't begin with pseudo strengths. They don't always begin as a pseudo strength. A lot of the strengths that quite honestly were abused in my last company, those used to be strengths that I really valued in myself. But over time and over the course of almost using them too much and being used in ways that didn't feel like they were actually feeding my soul, it, like Lynn said, I rose to burnout so much faster than I ever thought that I would. I wasn't at the company that I was at I had been at that company for 4-ish years, but it was about 2.5 years of playing to pseudo strengths and 2.5 years of running an uphill battle where when I got to the top, everything was just downhill from there. There was no actual moment of I've accomplished this and I feel great. It was a moment of I've accomplished this and now what? What else am I supposed to be doing? I've built all of these strengths. I've built my talents, but now none of these talents feed me in the way that they used to. And I think that was something that was difficult for me in the beginning. They used to feed that side of me for a very long time. And so coming to terms with the fact that those things no longer were going to feed what I needed them to feed, that was an extremely difficult part of my process. That was me mourning the identity of somebody who is in a corporate environment, runs meetings, is, for lack of a better phrase, excuse my French, head bitch in charge. That type of mentality is what you thrive for and what they teach you within a corporate environment. And over time, I just was so burned out of pretending to be somebody that I wasn't. And I didn't know that I was pretending to be somebody I wasn't.
I think the words you said to me after we went through the Be True course, which Shannon D, would you put the Be True course there? That's a place where you could start. It's probably the most life-altering course that we have, and the quickest. We do have one that you can go through this whole process instead of having a coach. There's a virtual do-it-yourself course as well that we can put in there too. But you came back from taking that and then analyzing your life and making that decision not to go back to the employer. And I remember the phrase you said, it's those damn core values of mine that won't let me go back.
Yes.
I don't know if anybody else can relate to that. I can relate to that. I'll bet some of you can, where there's that thing that you think you're going to or back to, and you just can't get your car or your body or your soul to make that turn into that driveway and park again.
Yes.
And so that was for you, right?
That was massive for me. There was a part of me that was mad, right? Because I had aligned with these wonderful core values of mine: integrity, communication, and personal development. I've always known that those are really important to me, but when we finally narrowed it down, I started looking at aspects of my life, not just my career, but in general, and being somewhat frustrated because I now felt out of alignment with so many aspects of what my life used to be. So when I had determined, like Lynn said, like, it's my damn values, like I can't let go of them. And when we boiled that down, it became very clear that the next place that I work, whether it is for myself or whether it is for somebody else, one of the most important things is I have to work for somebody who carries my values, or else I'm not going to be able to help them because I won't care. And that was not a part of who I was until we had boiled down my core values. I didn't realize it was important until that moment.
Right. And you may not. And also, I want to go back to another thing that you said, Lo. You were at this company for about 4.5 years. Mm-hmm. So the new research, and I try to stay on top of this, that I just found this summer says that each of us has the potential of having 7 to 12 different significant roles in our career time, whatever that is, however long you're going to work. And we typically will stay at an employer for 4.5 years or less. Sometimes we leave it emotionally before we leave it physically. And Lo, I think your sabbatical leave, there was a part of you that knew that you had left it, but you didn't recognize that emotionally you were gone, physically you were showing up. So those statistics are pretty interesting to look at. They don't describe many of our experiences from our parents. And it used to be that you think you went to school, you got a degree, that degree opened up a door for a career, and you stay with that career, but you advance within that career. And today it's just not that same game. It's the social contracts and the social network of mobility is so permeable right now that it's really odd to know that somebody has been a something for over 20 years now. And if you have, you've got a great, unusual story to start with, but most of us can't sustain that forever. So Lo, I think we should jump into some of the things. One of the things that we'll talk about experiments. One of the things that the coaches on the call and I will challenge you to do if you come through our coaching or go through our online course is to do experimentation. And the reason we do that is we cannot see who our future self is that's looking for that next thing by thinking about it. You can imagine some things, but until you get out there and you actually taste, experiment, discover, explore what else there is within you, because you have many different identities, professional identities inside of you. And some of you may have been suspicious that you did. You'd see somebody doing something and go, I could probably be good at that. You probably could be. You don't know if you'd like it, but you probably could try it and find out. That's the historic piece we found that's based in science and research that we have to explore, just like when we were children and we had to find out Which of those foods at that smorgasbord did we like? Which of those toys do we want to play with today? And which one will keep us enthralled? We still learn the very same way as adults, and we don't allow ourselves sometimes to explore so much. So, Lo, why don't you talk about some of the experiments that you have had and currently may have still going?
Yeah, so it was interesting when we started discussing experiments. I kind of was like, "Ugh, I'm going to be doing these experiments, and none of them are going to talk to me, and it's going to be just really disheartening, and I'm going to be really bummed out." And within the first 48 hours after Lynn had told me I needed to start experimenting, I could not stop thinking about interior design and decorating. It was slightly debilitating because it was when I was falling asleep at night. It was when I would wake up. It was when I would have any moment to myself. I immediately started thinking about designing spaces for friends and family. And I kept telling this to Lynn, and she would, at one point, she was like, "Well, then why aren't we just working on this side? Like, you can't stop thinking about it. You can't stop discussing it. So why don't we lean into this experiment while you're kind of messing with some other stuff over here?" And really what that did is it confirmed something that I didn't know I knew since I was little, but it was something that I knew since I was little. As I started to do this, I started remembering that when I would sit in church with my mom, we would be listening to whatever's going on, and I would draw designs for my bedroom, for the living room in our house. And this was when I was 9 or 10, and I had forgotten how much joy I got out of. I even remember the first design, and it is the most terrible thing in the world. I can't even, like, now I think back to that design when I was 9 or 10, and it's comical. But I had forgotten about how much joy that had given me as a kid. And as soon as Lynn, oddly enough, kind of gave me permission to think about this heart dream of mine, everything started to roll down the hill. All of a sudden, I was talking to people who wanted me to help them with their landscaping, who want me to help them redo their living room, who are intrigued by the fact that I'm really, really excited to help queer women specifically with their homes, because there's a market for that, I think. And so all of these pieces started falling into place in a way that I had never anticipated or allowed myself to think. And I think that mental hump of, it's okay for you to fall head over heels for designing spaces that make people feel safe. And that's the biggest one for me, experimentation wise. And then something that kind of slipped under the radar is actually my practice of Pilates. I do reformer Pilates. And for a really long time, I looked at it as, it's my movement every week. It's the thing that I need to have. I usually do 2 hours a day, which normally you only do 1. And in my head, I was like, oh, it's just because my body needs that kind of movement. And while to a certain degree, that's true, what I kept finding is whenever a teacher would talk about technique, I used to dance, and my dancer background kept on telling me, but what if you described it this way, so that they could start to understand it a little bit differently, start to connect with their body in a way that I'm so grateful for. It's what grounds me every single day. And that one slipped under the radar. And then as that one has come more and more to fruition, it's become very clear, interior design and Pilates, they both have to be a part of my life in a way where I actually want to make money from them. I thought it was just a passion, but it's so much more than that, because, and by passion, I mean, there's a passion that you just foster, and then there's passion that you can create into a job, right? This passion I definitely never considered, but now that I'm even looking at it, I'm like, why didn't I think of this in the first place? It connects so much to who I am as a person with my mental health and everything. Why wouldn't I want to share that with other people? And that's the biggest thing that's changed for me, is I'm no longer just doing a job to do a job. I'm trying to do something to share what I have with other people that I think will be able to benefit them. And that rolls right back around to one of my core values, personal development. Personal development isn't just about helping yourself develop all the time. Personal development for me is about finding the individuals in your life or whoever you come in contact with that maybe don't see their potential, and you can help them realize that. That's what's important to me with personal development. And Pilates feeds into that, while interior design can feed a whole other side of my creative psyche.
Yeah. And part of the experimentation, I think we should point out, is you took some classes.
Mhm.
You've actually earned some income from the design.
Mhm.
And let's talk about one other experiment that you have that you've learned probably won't play a big part.
Mhm.
You want to tell them about that one?
Oh man, which one, Lynn? There's like 3 where I was like, oh, that one's not going to work. Oh, that one's not going to work.
You,
That
you
one
can
too.
men- you can mention any or all of them.
Actually, one that I don't know if we've talked a lot about, Lynn, but one recently that has come up is actually declining clients that don't align with what I'm trying to do with interior design. So that's kind of a subset of what we're talking about, but I still think it's worth noting because that is part of the experiment, and it's part of noting when the experiment doesn't work for certain aspects of your life. My sister likes to give me personas for interior design, and I have to create a mood board based off of that. And she gave me one for a design style I do not understand. I don't think it fits with anyone's style, and she knew that. And she told me, this is what I would really love for you to create this type of a thing for my cabin in the woods in Alabama where I don't live. And so I came back to her and I said, I don't want anything to do with this design. Thank you so much. I will be leaving now. And it was this moment of this experiment that I had been playing in my head for weeks and weeks and weeks. There was this moment in this experiment where I was like, oh, that actually doesn't play to my strengths at all. That's going to be a pseudo strength. I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And what that did is it allowed me to release this tension of take every single job that comes your way. Make sure you're constantly trying to get your name out there. That doesn't work for me. That gives me unneeded anxiety because I don't think I'm able to provide for them what they're actually looking for. And that's extremely important to me. So that was one element of an experiment that just did not pan out. Another element this one we really haven't talked about, Lynn, is actually xeriscaping. So I've had a really interesting journey with xeriscaping. I have a friend that I've been helping do theirs for the last few months, and it's been extremely exciting, except I kept on wanting to go inside their house and start doing stuff inside. And it's beautiful and the outside looks amazing. And what we ended up with the design is fantastic. We're all really proud of it. But I kept on coming back to, this is fun, but like, what's going on inside? Like, do we need to paint? Do we need to add some new decor? Like, that's what was going on. And so while I haven't let go of that part of my experiment, what I've done is I've completely changed the way that I look at it. If you want me to work on the outside of your house, I need to know who you are on the inside of your house. And that's what's important to me. So my experiments, I truly feel, have just been little tweaks here and there that have aligned with one main experiment that I've been focusing on, that honestly, I probably should have been focusing on my whole life because it's something I care about that much.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why our company is called Soul Salt. We try our darndest to bring you back to the salt of your soul so you can see what's there. Because once you do, your answers are there.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to see when you live inside your skin, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
hard.
And so, and one of the other experiments was dog sitting, dog walking, dog care. You love animals. So
I love them.
and you've earned money this way, but this you found out again, that's another no, right? And so,
Yes, it is. It is a no. It's not like a hard no, like I'll never watch your dog ever again. But what it actually has shown me, full disclosure, I deal with a number of mental illnesses. I'm bipolar 2. I have some form of OCD, and I also have a high anxiety disorder. So all of those mixed together is fine for checking in on cats and dogs. It's not great when you live in the person's house. So that's what I've discovered is I love animals. I love them with all my heart. If you've ever seen a picture of me with a dog, you'll know that in that moment, every other human being in the world falls away. I don't care about you at that point. I care about your dog. And so that part of me is great for Rover, but it's also not, because this anxiety and OCD that I have, I'm too controlling. It just does not work for me. And that is not the easiest thing to say, because animals are a massive part of my life, but not in the way that I thought they were going to be.
And these are things you cannot find out unless you experiment. You just don't know if you like spinach or not till you taste it. You
Yeah.
just don't know if you can do the dog sitting for a long term.
Mhm.
And so let's kind of, as we start to move to more of a conclusion, one of the things I wanted to bring out, Lo, and I'm curious how you'll respond to this. Reinvention, there's no real right way to do it. In this case, right now, you see Lo has two possibilities, and it could be possible that she could earn her living and expand her life and ignite who she is by teaching Pilates and doing the interior design. She can do both. She can get certified in both. She's taken classes on the interior. That's a legitimate way to look at your life, remembering that even if you are your own employer, you may not stay with that forever. You may, when you're with another employer, maybe 4.5 years, 4.2 months, whatever it is. When you are your own employer, it can also evolve. It can also change. So Lo, what would you say about the possibility of earning income from two revenue streams that seem maybe disconnected to other people, but to you, they're nothing but connected to who you are?
Yeah, I think it's very much a hump that I had to get over. We grow up in a society where it is typical that you work a 9-to-5 job, and that is it. That is what you do. And even now you'll hear people hear about an entrepreneur and they kind of turn their nose up, because it's like, oh, are you actually stable? But what I've found, and this is, Lynn told me a story about one of her clients who ended up that they need to have their hands in many, many buckets in order to feel fulfilled. And that story stuck with me because my brain does not allow me to stay in one lane. It just doesn't. I've never been able to do that, but I've constantly tried to fit into that mold. So when Lynn told me about that, the wheels started turning of, do I really need to look at this and say, with interior design, if I want it to be my job and my livelihood, I have to make X amount and that's it. What that conversation did is it went, well, but why would you do that when your brain has told you you're not supposed to work like that for basically your whole life? The way you were in school, the way you are with your friends, the way you interact with people, strangers every day. I do not have one interest. I am not the person who only wants to share one interest. And I think the sharing part of who I am is how I ended up at the place of I need to have my hands in multiple buckets, because there's more to me than just this one interior design aspect. I have many facets, many possible selves, and I don't want to shut the window or the door on any of those possible selves. I want to be able to explore them. And I think something Lynn said that's really important is, from the outside looking in, Pilates and interior design have nothing to do with each other for most people. But for me, it's a symbiotic relationship, because if I don't have Pilates, I can't do jack shit with my actual passion of interior design, and vice versa. My Pilates is what fuels my life, and my design is what fuels my creativity. I need both. And if I can share what I have, I need to be able to do that. Putting myself in a box of only one career, it completely takes that aspect of who I am out. I'm no longer that person anymore. And that's what's important. And that's what I bring to the table is these differing ideas, being able to question the status quo, connect with people randomly. Like I have a knack for those kinds of things. If I were to, for me personally, narrow my sight into one lane, all of these other things that I have to offer, they're not going to get the same amount of attention. But if I can say to myself, it's okay to earn from multiple incomes. You don't have to have one job that you get paid 110K a year. That's not what this is. It's about, you don't even need to think about that portion of it when you end up getting to a place of, I have fed these little buckets of my life by controlling them in my way, making money in my way. And now I feel like I'm giving what I was supposed to give to everybody else all along.
Wow. That feels really great, doesn't it?
Oh, I mean, it's completely life-changing. I don't currently have a job right now. I'm in the process of finding a bridge job so that I can fund a lot of this. But even that being said, I'm making $0 a year and I'm happier than I've ever been. And I think that is something everybody should know. No, you don't need to do that. Not everybody is I was very lucky in my financial situation. Not everybody gets that. I understand that. But there is something to be said about having nothing but your creativity, but your path, but your values. Those are the things that will feed a soul in a way where everybody tells you financial means are supposed to feed you.
That's right. Yeah. And that's where a lot of reinventors get, those of you who are listening in. I've worked with people who have had offices in Times Square, one office and one office in Chicago, and they traveled between, and they finally got to a place where they recognize, I want to sell the house in Chicago. I want to down scale my life, and I want it to be manageable, and I want to do only the things that I love doing. And that can be scary. It can also be emancipating. It's not everybody's path. You've seen what Lo's path has been. She's been so vibrant in sharing that. You have a story like that as well. There's a lot more to you. And so we have some resources I want to talk about, and then we'll open up for some questions. Shannon Judge and Hillary, I'd love you guys to comment or ask questions of Lo in just a second. In the chat, you will see that we have given you our resource, Be True, the online course. If you're a client or will plan on being a future client, that will come to you in your kit. We also have a do-it-yourself online course, if that's useful for you. It's a 6-month course, and we only let you go through 30 days at a time because we pace you through the things that Lo's going through. And so if you have time mostly to work at your own pace, that's a really good option. We also have a book that we really love, Until We Write, our reinvention book. That's the second one that's in the queue after this one that we're going to publish soon. Ibarra's book on working identity, taking that into consideration, a lot of case studies. She's done a lot of research out of Harvard. She just knows what it takes to strategize your way through a reinvention. So it's a really good read if you're even curious. You can get it used. There are so many editions out there. One client got it for 98 cents. They got the original edition and it's still packed with value. So you can find that in the chat. So Shannon Judge and Hillary, as we start to wind down, do you either of you had a question or a comment based on what Lo shared today?
I want to say, Lo, it's thanks for sharing your story, and I'm like struck by your brevity. Like that takes a lot of braveness to experiment the way that you did, to not go back to a place that you know just didn't align with you and was soul sucking. So really inspiring to hear. And I guess I'm really curious, like, do you have a sense now of what you want between the design and Pilates? Like, do you have a vision of that? Or are you still kind of experimenting for it to come together?
I actually do. I have a goal. I have a set, salary that I know I need to be able to make in order to survive, especially in today's economy. And based off of that, I've actually given a pie chart split from how I want that income to come through. So right now I have 40% would be coming from Pilates, 50% would be coming from interior design, and 10% is my playtime. So I've learned now I am an entrepreneur. It is what it is. And in that, I know that there's a need for that 10% to still be fed by new ideas. So that's kind of the breakdown that I've ended up at. Who knows how that will change? I am very willing to ebb and flow. I've learned that is a necessity in this, is you need to be willing to shift, and change is hard, but you still need to push through. And I think that's really what I want to strive for, but I'm always open to anything.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks.
Really fantastic story.
Thanks.
Good. Yeah. Good question. Thank you, Shannon Judge. Hillary, what do you want to say?
Hi, Lo. Nice to meet you. I haven't got to meet you yet, so it's so great to hear your story today. And I love how you can just speak through it with just this flow of happiness. You seem content in your life, and I
Thank
love
you.
what you're sharing there. I think that for my clients, a big challenge is the money part. Now,
Mhm.
you talked about how you are happier than you've ever been. You do have a plan. You're not going to just be out there forever.
Yeah.
But can you give any nuggets as to how you knew it was okay to take that leap? How you knew you were okay financially? Because I think that's a big hurdle for a lot of people wanting to make that change.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that's a great question because that is for me probably one of the most terrifying parts of this is the unknown, right? Financial unknown is debilitating. And so there's a hump that you have to get over, but I started doing a lot of Lynn mentioned earlier, I was checked out of my job mentally long ago. I was there physically, I was still performing my duties, but mentally I was not there. And I knew that something needed to change. I didn't know what, I didn't know when, but I started preparing myself before actually leaving my job by creating new financial habits. So at the beginning of 2022, went into a no buy year. So I have not bought any new clothes. I have not bought any new shoes. I have not bought any new makeup. I've not bought any new hair care, just replacements of what I've needed. And I've even cut out delivery services for food. So honestly, like it's not a pretty answer, right? But it's the reality. I cut out everything that was giving me quote unquote joy because it was not giving me joy. It was filling a void that needed to be filled. So I removed all of those things to pare it back. And I think that did a number of things. One, it taught me better financial stability and habits. I saved so much money, like before I decided to leave, which I think was really important. It was upsetting how much I was spending, and I didn't realize it until I started saving all of that money. So that was a big one. But also, even more than that, it completely changed the way I view spending money. And now I'm afraid to spend money. Like, that's not a great thing, but like now I've gotten into this place of I don't need any of those things that society and my job and the salary I was making was telling me that I needed. I was, you need the newest of new fashion, you need the new shoes, you need the new bag, you need the updated sports equipment. I needed all of my new Pilates stuff, but I didn't actually need any of that. And if you would have asked me last year, this time, if I needed those items, I would have said yes. But because I did a lot of work prior to leaving my job of I am spending too much money and this could be saved for something in the future, I think it drastically changed my financial situation when I did decide to leave my job. I think I had saved up so much at that point that I was able to give myself this breath of, you can actually do this. You already know how not to spend money. You have the funds in order to keep it. You've created some stability and within your own life and how you handle things. And it didn't just happen in my life, it's transferred over to my partner as well. So now both of us are financially very aware of what's going on. And it's literally due to habit changes.
Yeah. Hillary, that's such a good.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. And that is one place you could start today. If you want to get into reinvention mode, revisit your budget or get a budget and look at it.
Mhm.
Most people who come through reinvention take time to go through their budget and find out what they really need and what they really want. And they revise their lives starting with their budget to get a nice reality check on what's necessary.
Yeah.
Once you know
One thing I would, oh, sorry, Lynn. One thing I would add to that, and this is not for everybody, like this is a very big exclamation part, not for everybody, but it was for me. I was not on social media during that time. So it meant I did not get any ad pushed my way to purchase something that did not do anything for me in life. And that really changed my spending habits and the way I view purchases because something wasn't being shoved down my throat all the time. Now, again, people ditching social media, that isn't for everybody, but being very aware of what that does for your spending habits That's, I think, the more important piece to being able to fund yourself in this new journey that you're on.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because you may also, when you go into reinvention, want to turn off as much, if you were watching news constantly or something else or social media, take other people's stories out of it. Because what we'll ask you to do in career reinvention is whittle out the metrics for your own success, whittle out your own yardstick of what success looks like for you. And we'll show you how to do that so that it comes from inside. So you touched on a bridge job. That's something that we might also encourage. That's a concept that we cover. And that's just simply finding a way to pay for your needs while you're in the reinvention. So that's a bridge. It's not something you're going to live on. You're going to just walk across it to something else.
I'm going to ditch it as soon as I can. I'm going to ditch it.
Get off that bridge. So what's your final piece of advice, Lo?
Oh, final piece of it. Honestly, and this is something that I think everybody knows, but it's worth saying, trust your gut. Trust your gut. If your gut is telling you that this is not the right place for you, if there is an inkling of you that is feeling lost or like you're not even being noticed, you're not being heard, you have more to offer and you feel like it's falling on deaf ears, trust your gut. Do what you have to in order to be like responsible. But if I wouldn't have trusted my gut, if I wouldn't have gone outside my comfort zone, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And that means that mentally, I wouldn't be safe. And that's extremely important to me. So trust your gut. You know yourself better than anybody else. It's that simple.
Thank you. That's such good advice. And that's really all you need to know. If you are on this call because you feel like you need to make a change, trust that. What you don't have to know is, where is the change? You don't have to know that right now. How do I make the change? You just need to know, I'm ready for the change. The hows and the whats come through the process. We know the hows. We will guide you to those. We will ask you to find your own guidance system to say, what's a yes, what's a no for you. And at the same time, when that thing arrives, you'll know if it's yours or not. So the least important thing for you to know is, where are you going? And the most important thing is that you have to go somewhere else. If you know that, you're in the right place. And Shannon D has put into the chat also a link to our intake form. So if you would like a free discovery, fill out that intake form. You'll have a space in there where you can say you want an intake discussion with Shannon Judge, or with Hillary Brandeis, or with myself. You can specify. And if you don't know, you don't need to specify, but please know that that intake form is there. We'll give you a free session, let you talk through it, let you see if there's anything in there for you based on this topic. And huge thanks, Lo. I feel like we've all been energized by your energy and your enthusiasm. Mostly though, I would tell you that the honesty and the vulnerability of what you have shared has been appreciated. I've watched heads nodding. It's very relatable. It's very real. And those of you who are on the call, thank you for having the courage to come here. Life can get better. All of us who've been through this will attest to that. You can have things that you never imagined you could have. And there's a piece of you that's just waiting for you to tell it, yes, now it's your time. Let's see what's inside of you. Because there's more to you that once you get an expansive look at that, it will blow your mind of what you can do with it. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks again, Lo, for taking time. All of you here, thank you, thank you. Look at the resources and please be safe.